When 17-year-old songstress Gabby Barrett sang her heart out in front of the American Idol judges in March 2018, her dad waited nervously outside. Then it turned out he was allowed into the studio after being told that his daughter was upset. But while he thought Gabby's singing dreams had been shattered at the audition for the series' live shows, something golden would happen next. Gabby's a teenage high school student from Munhall near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and her special talent while growing up has always been singing. Her personal musical idol, meanwhile, is Carrie Underwood, and indeed, Gabby chose to sing one of the star's songs at her prestigious audition. And for Gabby, getting to appear on the world-famous talent contest American Idol was seemingly an utterly thrilling prospect. She even referred to it as the Golden Show when she first met the show's panel of judges, singers Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, and Lionel Richie. Why was Gabby so excited? Well, singing means everything to her. And after she started singing seriously when she was just 9 years old, there's always been one person supporting her in her background, her father, 53-year-old Blaze. "My dad has sacrificed so much for me," the teenager said on screen, right before her big audition. Gabby also told the show's producers that her family was by no means wealthy, something that she thinks has made her relationship with her dad even stronger. "Going through hard times made us bond closer," she told the American Idol cameras as Blaze sat right beside her. Then the viewers of the top TV show were treated to a behind-the-scenes look at Gabby's home life. In the feature, the watching audience saw for themselves how hard Blaze works to provide for his daughter. In fact, he reportedly toils day and night to provide for all of his 8 kids. During the daytime, for instance, Blaze works at the nonprofit organization Goodwill Industries as a maintenance man. Then, when night rolls around, he puts in more hours at his second job as an apartment cleaner. Although he and Gabby have joked that the real task there is cleaning toilets, nevertheless, the family man has a sentimental side too. In fact, some tender words he said to his daughter even brought a tear to the eye of American Idol host Ryan Seacrest. Specifically, Blaze told Gabby that he wanted to die knowing that he'd done everything he could for his daughter's future. In return, Gabby called her dad her rock, and of course, on the day of her American Idol audition, Blaze accompanied his daughter. Then, with the solid support of her father standing by her side, it was time for the teenager to take the plunge. Hoping that she could become the season's next big thing, Gabby entered the judges' closed-off set. The hopeful teen looked great as she smiled sweetly and told the 3 judges that Carrie Underwood was her idol. But when Gabby began to sing Good Girl, the panel told her to stop. They said they weren't looking for a jukebox performer, explaining that they didn't want to hear her simply imitating someone else. Indeed, Perry, Brian, and Richie wanted Gabby to be more herself musically. With this in mind, they asked her if she could be more versatile and sing another song by a different artist. Clearly, having only prepared to sing Underwood songs, Gabby hesitated a bit. But then she came up with an idea. The Munhall girl burst into an old song she'd learned in church, this time sounding very different to before. But would it be enough to convince the judging panel? Well, as she hit a high note, Brian held his hands up, and Gabby knew that it was time to stop singing. Meanwhile, outside the judges' set, the teenager's anxious dad was waiting to find out how his daughter had gone on. The door of the studio would open, however, and Katy Perry would pop her head out to ask a question. "Is Gabby's dad here?" the star inquired in a somber tone. With that, Blaze duly followed a straight-faced Perry into the studio, where a huddle of people stood in the center. The no doubt worried dad could see Brian and Richie standing around his daughter, looking like they were comforting her. Then, on their way over, Perry explained to Blaze, "She's just a little upset right now. Sorry, man." But as the two approached Gabby, who had her back turned to them, Perry asked the teenager, "Can you explain why you're upset?" The star was heavily implying that Gabby had not made it through the audition. At that moment, though, Gabby spun around to face Blaze with a huge grin across her face. "I got it!" she screamed, waving her golden ticket to the Hollywood Week stage of the competition in the air. And her doting dad's reaction was absolutely priceless when he realized that he'd been so spectacularly punked. Blaze cupped his face with his hands, apparently in a mixture of disbelief and relief, as his daughter jumped up and down with delight. Then he embraced Gabby. The maintenance man couldn't maintain his composure, however, and he sobbed as he held his offspring close. The grateful dad hugged Perry next, uttering the words, "Thank you," before burying his face in his hands once again. Brian and Richie also heartily congratulated Blaze, and all the while the father wiped the tears from his face, a reaction that Perry simply couldn't cope with. Indeed, the firework star now turned on the waterworks. "When dads cry," Perry exclaimed, pointing to her tearful eyes, "I don't want my eyelashes to fall off," she wailed, leaning on her knees for support during the overwhelmingly emotional moment. And with that, Gabby's American Idol audition drew to a close. How the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School student fares in the next stage of the competition remains to be seen. Nevertheless, she's earned herself a whole host of supporters after pulling off that prank on her dad. Indeed, when Gabby got back from the audition, she reportedly had some 37 packages at home for her that had been passed on by various fans. Gabby even received a personalized blanket emblazoned with her name and logo from one well-wisher. And the support she's received since her first appearance on American Idol has touched her deeply. The Munhall girl, who has turned 18 since the audition, told local news website Trib Live, "This means a lot to me because I want to make my family and my hometown proud."